All right, guys, cool. So, for any of you here, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. We've got Jackson Lamone on here with us today, and we're pumped. We're pumped. We basically wanted to do this live because honestly, we both work in the B2B space. We both help clients to book more calls, generate more meetings, in different processes. And we've been chatting for a little while, and we thought it would be really good to essentially merge our knowledge, me on DMs, Jackson on content and email funnels, essentially to be able to not just book calls, but to be able to own that audience, to be able to take it off LinkedIn, increase and add leverage to the audience that you own, versus just like managing on the platforms. So what I wanted to do today was essentially just run through, like, I'm going to be asking Jackson the questions. He's really our professional on here today. Um, and we're going to be going through essentially like why email, like how to use email and content to add leverage to your sales process. I'm going to be jamming as we go through on how you can increase with the DMs, like congruently with your email and content flows, right? So how you can merge all of them together, kind of get the most bang for your buck, how to maximize things, right? And then we'll also talk a little bit about newsletter structure as well, and then how to increase sales through both like the pre-sales sequences and also sequences that you can do to maybe try and either retarget or hit people afterwards as well. And then what we'll do is a bunch of you guys who are joining us have already submitted questions specifically through the like registration form, which is wicked because that gives us some more stuff to kind of jam on. So we're going to go through those first after we've had about 45 minutes of our standard questions with Jackson. And then what we'll do is we'll open up for a live Q&A and we'll get as much questions as we possibly can. So anything that you guys have as you go forward, stick it in the comments, and then we'll try and get to those at the end as well. Cool. So Jackson, welcome. Nice one for being here with me, man. Do you want to just give us a quick little background of like what you do and how you got into the game?
Yeah. So I did not start in the marketing game. I actually started in the linguistics field. so studied linguistics over at college and loved it. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to languages. And then during my last couple semesters, my dad was working on a startup. He asked me to help with a logo. I also really love logos and just like the design aspect of it. So built the logo for him. And then he's like, hey, can you like build a website for us now? And I was like, sure. I was like, never built one before. So I started building it out. I'm like, what the heck do you like even put on a website? So I was like searching like wireframes and like, then someone said like copy. I was like, oh, you just like copy other people? Like, and then I was like, oh no, this is actually like a whole industry of copywriting. And so that's what kind of got me into the copywriting space. Just went on a massive rabbit hole deep dive into that. Loved it. It was the perfect mash of like language and marketing. And then took a little side quest at a paid ads agency. And then I was like, I still love like the copy side. I was writing a little bit of copy for some clients, and then ghostwriting for the founder. And I was like, if I can take care of all of these clients here, like, why can't I just like do this on my own? And I felt pretty confident in those skills and what I was doing. So then I went live with my stuff. Um, Full time, just ghostwriting. Started mainly in like the social ghostwriting, so I understand like the content game, the social content game pretty well. And then I found a lot of leverage in email. So that's a quick snapshot, but yeah.
Yeah, man. Happy days. I think there's always a weird, quirky backstory of people getting into the game, right? I think once you're kind of solo founders, entrepreneurs, like I don't think any of us have this like did A levels or whatever level of school in whatever country you're in, did this one, then did uni, then did this, and it was all planned out. I think it usually has some kind of weird curveball to a story. So it's good to hear, man. Cool. Well, look, let's jump straight into it. And I'm really curious. Like, I think the best place to start is basically just like, why email, right? Like, why email for a B2B founder? What is the benefit? What can we really do with it? Yeah, man. Why email?
Yeah. Um, Such a good question. um, I would say first, like email is like one of the oldest forms of like digital communication. It's been around for a long time and I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. So it's a very reliable platform. Like, is it changing? yes, of course, like AI is getting into the inbox. There's different aspects of the platform that are changing, but I think it's a very well known platform. Everyone knows how to work email. Like it's simple. Um, so I'd say that that's the first point. Second point of like why email is it is a relationship based platform versus discovery and attention platforms like on social media. You need both, but I think a lot of people are missing out on the benefits of a relationship platform. Relationship meaning you have one to one direct access with your reader. That's number two. I would say number three, that gets me excited is you get to put, I was sharing this with some people a couple days ago, but you get to give your readers an opportunity to go long form with you. It's hard to have like with all these quick hits on social media with shorter form type of content, which is still a big part of the game. If you can give them like an environment where they can sit down and actually read through copy, and if it's good copy and like you have some good stories and it's very engaging and fun to read your stuff, like you're going. Someone said it. What was like the phrase? It was like time on content or like the time they spent with your brand. There's a certain phrase for it, but they just get to spend more time with you. That's why YouTube is like the gold standard because they're spending so much time with you and they like get to see you. I think email is like a very close second with that.
Yeah, totally, totally. Is it where what is it? It's the 7-11-4 study, right? It's like it's 7 hours with 11 touch points across 4 different platforms, right? I guess that's kind of like how you actually own the audience, right? It's not just how you have it on LinkedIn. Is you are owning that audience. When you have a list, you can go long form. You get them to actually binge your content. That's time on content. It's adding another platform, and I think when you build that relationship through something like email, it's almost more personal, right? Even though it is just text. But if you can do it right and you can tell the story and you can get people woven into your world, it's almost more personal than just seeing a a post that might have a selfie or something like that. But it's like it's deeper, right? It's taking that next step into your world, which is really powerful, which is really, really cool. I think also like my brain obviously always goes DM focused. And I think like when you have people signing up to email, it's not just the likes and the comments and the profile views that you can use to DM somebody. You can see how many emails they've opened. You can see what links they've clicked in your emails. And again, those are all intent triggers to be able to reach out to somebody. If somebody's opened 6 of your emails this week or multiple opens or clicked on all the links, you then know that you can then go and DM that person because they might just be one option, one little click away from actually working from you, or comparing you with somebody else, and to be able to book a call, that's super useful. So yeah, man, email for me once since I've started using it has been really, really powerful.
Yeah. And I
uh,
think to double down on that too, like to like really showcase the difference between like the social and the email aspect, like well, on LinkedIn, you can see how many people click your links if you put it inside of the post. It doesn't work in the comments, but if you like put a link in your post, you can go to your analytics and see, okay, 40 people click this link. But email, like you said, is that level deeper where you can see like exactly who, and then you can tag that person, and then you can send them, like put them in a sequence, send them specific content, or reach back out to them in the DMs. And so it's just that level deeper of the analytics, which we love the data in the game. So
yeah, that's one of the things that I think actually maybe trips people up when they first get into it is the sequencing, right? Is the data, is the splits, and who gets what email and things like that. um, Maybe you can actually help. Like, what is the like if somebody is just getting into email right now, what's like the one email flow that somebody should just create? Because it's a rabbit hole.
but yeah, it is a very, very deep rabbit hole. It's fun too. Um, I would say like first priority is just making sure you have a really solid welcome flow. Making sure that onboarding into the brand is set. Like, I mean, you could have like the cool sequences later down the road, do it, but like that first initial reaction that they have and like first impression that they have with your brand, I think is extremely important. And so, like if I want to get tactical just for a second, it's like give them stuff, like give them free stuff. Like, hey, I just want to help you more. Um, I'll probably talk about my grandma like off and on during this live, but I've like run a newsletter for my grandma. It's crushing right now. It's so much fun, and I created like a mini cookbook. And so for everyone who signs up to the newsletter, you get like grandma's 5 favorite recipes, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, I love these!" And so like, I mean, you can have fun with it and just like load them up with value, set expectations, tell them what's coming. But yeah, like a solid welcome flow, 2 to 3 emails, doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Simple, right? Literally 2 to 3 emails with a call to action in the last one. Yeah, super simple, especially when it comes to B2B, I think like you lots of people do send like daily emails, but I think in B2B, like a few emails with then a call to action to then potentially work with you or take the next step, whatever that might be, book a call, download a free thing, like, just like that next step is super super powerful. Whereas I think maybe in like D2C and like some like product world, you might be spamming them with like tons more emails, or need like a 30-day email flow to get somebody in, right? But with B2B, it's like you don't need as much. I think it's more just like what I can help you do, how we can help you do that, and then like, do you want to do it, right? So keeping it super simple, man. I like it. That's really cool. Now, before we jumped on, when we were talking about doing this live, one of the biggest things that I think email and content gives you is like leverage, right? So for you, you spoke about repurposing content, right? So you can use an email as or an email content, right, as leverage to create a ton more emails, right? So what does that look like for you? What is your repurposing kind of process?
Yeah. Um, I feel like everyone's process is a little bit different. Some people are like, don't listen to everyone who tells you to repurpose content. Like it's not true content. It's like, no, it is. It just, it all has to be congruent and like it all has to be like underneath the same umbrella and category and story, whatever. Um, but I like to take, I think it was Justin Welsh who actually put this out first, but like the hub and spoke model, where I like to take the newsletter content is at like the center of the spoke, and then you build out from there. So, for example, if you write a long form newsletter, um, 500, 800 words, probably a little bit more if you're really going in depth. Um, if you write it correctly and like you're very intentional about like each section of the newsletter and like, hey, step 1, step 2, step 3, whatever, you can now repurpose that into social content on LinkedIn. One thing that I like to do is if you send like your newsletter on Friday, on Thursday, do like a hype for that newsletter. So you're just like taking like a summary of that newsletter. That is
Mm.
like your Thursday post to tell people to hop on and look forward to tomorrow. And then on Saturday, you send a recap of like, hey, yesterday we talked about this. And so already from one newsletter, you have 2 social posts, which I really like to help drive people to the newsletter. I think another way is to use it as a YouTube script. Like literally, just Dan Code does this all the time. You just he writes his newsletter and then he'll flip on his camera and then just read his newsletter. Like, and sometimes it's pretty word for word. And I'm like, well, this dude already made the content. There's no need for him to go spend another 2 or 3 hours trying to ideate a new YouTube video when he already made the content. And so I think it's a time saver. I would rather repurpose than try to use AI to help me come up with 500 different ideas. It's like put in like really good high quality work up front, and then you can move it to different places. So yeah, social, YouTube. You can chop it up even smaller if you want to go like the Twitter, Substack notes game. I mean, because you already wrote all of it, so that's how I would think about repurposing. Of course, there's different areas that I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit, but yeah, that's how I like to think about it.
Okay, wicked. That's also like, I think something else you mentioned when it was repurposing is you can send people to those places after they've been posted, right? Like a newsletter isn't just like wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Like, it's not just you do one newsletter and then you can never speak about that thing again. It's like that is something that you can use. One, if it does really well, you can repurpose that a few months down the line. But also, like I said, each little piece of that is its own piece of content. I know a lot of people like they do their newsletter, right? So that's might be weekly or bi-weekly or something like that. But then they also want to send stuff in the week, right? So they might want to send something on a Monday or and a Wednesday, and actually their newsletter comes out on a Friday, right? Like you were kind of saying, let's say your newsletter has six different pieces in it. You can take one of those and go deeper on the Monday, and one of those and go deeper on the Wednesday, right? And then it seems congruent as well, right? You've got like the large amount, and then that gives you the leverage to turn it into two, three, five other posts, depending on how long it is, which is really cool. And then one thing that was really useful for me, because I was always like creating assets that I would send in a DM, right? And I'd create like a video or a Loom or a YouTube or something, and I'd send that. Um, and I never really thought the fact that actually the emails are those already, right? It's just like another thing where you put in a bunch of work and you can split that up into a bunch of different things, which is just super powerful, really, really helpful. Um,
I would
I
even
think,
add too. Um, one thing that comes to mind is like the big mistake that people make is it just barely left my head. Um, come back to me. I was thinking of like a big mistake people make. But keep going, keep going.
when sending out their smaller pieces.
Um, yeah, when sending out their smaller pieces. I remember. With the congruent thing, like some people think like, oh, one day I can talk about like my marathon training, and then the next email or newsletter I can talk about like how my business is doing, and then the next one is like your family relationships and like the fun vacation you went on, and like sure, like you can do it, but like don't expect any huge massive business outcomes to come from it, because it really does need to be congruent with whatever your goal is. I think that's an important piece because everyone's like, oh, like personal branding, just like share your stuff, but it's like no, like it has to be all in line. So
Yeah, totally. It has to be some kind of a theme, right? I think that's the same as when it's normal content or even your DMs, right? I think like as a slightly aside, I think with the whole automating of stuff now, it's like I'm posting my own content, but I'm automating my DMs, and then they sound nothing like you, and they get crap results, right? Or vice versa, right? I'm AIing all my content, and then I'm DMing you, and again, it's just not congruent. Um, and it's like when you're talking about brand, like you're better off actually having less and making it better than trying to just maximize on volume, right? Across all aspects, I would say. No matter whether you can pump out a newsletter every single day that's 300,000 words, it's like, yeah, but there's nothing like actually working with you. So I think that's a really important thing for people to understand for sure. Um, so one thing that I know in the solo founder, especially kind of world, is people are kind of thinking about high ticket, low ticket, product funnels, all that kind of stuff. Um, how would you structure a really simple funnel? Like most people want to sell a high ticket thing. Yeah. But like a lot of people have this low front end. Now, whether that is a free thing like a lead magnet and up, or whether that is a low ticket and up. But if someone has both a low ticket and a high ticket, right, how do you structure an email flow simply, right? So that you're promoting both without it feeling like constant selling.
mm, yeah, I think it's a good question. Um, Also, before I answer it, your screen's just a bit frozen. I don't know if you got to refresh on your end.
All right.
Yeah, to answer your question, um, I would say I think it's important to understand like the timeline of both. Like if you have something that costs like thousands of dollars, it's probably going to take a little bit longer for someone to think about it because it's a bigger investment. Um, so I think knowing the timeline, and of course, like a digital product, if it's like 10, 30, like $100, they can make that decision a lot quicker. So I think keeping that in mind is good context. And then when it comes to building out like the specific email flows, I mean, there's so many different strategies you can take with email. A couple cool ones that I've seen that I'm going to try to implement for one of my clients is like they have a low ticket digital product, but we want to offer that as soon as they sign up for the newsletter. So they go to the newsletter landing page, killer offer, have that like free welcome gift, and then on that thank you page, it's like, hey, thanks for joining. By the way, normally we charge like a lot of money for these digital products. We wanted to give this one to you for a lot cheaper. And so you just like you offer that before they even leave the platform. I think or they leave the landing page, and I think that's a really good way to just kind of like slightly plug in your low ticket items of like, hey, this is here. Like, by the way, because you're catching them at a very high intent stage where they know you, they just signed up for your newsletter, they're expecting like that free welcome gift, they're expecting that first email. So if you can plug in your low ticket stuff there, I think that's really helpful. And then um, in those first welcome flows, I think, or welcome emails, I think that's the place to really set expectations for what you have available, because you never know like what people are really looking for unless you have like a really good segmentation survey. But when people join, like maybe they're ready to buy tomorrow, like maybe they're not ready to buy for a couple months, but if you can just let them know and just remind them like, hey, by the way, like maybe this is at the end of your welcome flow. Hey, like by the way, I have these offers. Like if you're needing help with this, um, I can solve this problem, and I can help you solve this problem. Um, Here's the next step, right? Like just like a really very clear CTA. You're not trying to cover anything up. I think that's helpful when it comes to the flows. And then of course, like we mentioned, just tracking those people. Um, so you can see like who raised their hand. So you're like, hey, I have these offers. If someone clicked, like they're more likely than the people who didn't click to move forward with that type of offer. And so being very intentional with, okay, like who's going where, and what is their behavior like inside of the inbox and inside of your emails, I think is important. When it comes to specific email flows around that, I think that's a little bit more tailored to like, okay, what's your offer and who are you trying to help? And like, what do they want? For example, there may be some categories that like they want more content. They're like, this industry is moving so fast, just give me more. I think like Fit Insider and the newsletter that they do, they're sending stuff like like multiple times a day. And like it's a lot, but like there's so much happening in the health and fitness space that like they need to be sending that for people to be on top of it versus like a slower moving industry. um
Totally. One of the things that kind of strikes me there is it's also, I think, one of the fears for people is like, I don't want to make the offer because I'm going to come across salesy, right? I see this all the time in the DMs, right? That's generally 90% of people's problem, which is why they just focus on content and email, and they don't want to add that DM layer, right? Because there's a removal when you're just doing the content, right? But the fear for people seems to be, I don't want to pitch in each email, or even a slight PS. By the way, I have these things available, just like you're mentioning, uh,
mhm.
because they're worried it's going to come across too salesy. But fundamentally, you also need to be aware if you're going to be setting up an email funnel, you pay per subscriber, right? And you don't want people who are not interested in what you actually have to sell. Yes, you want to be able to nurture and you want to be able to bring people through, and you totally want to be able to generate those clicks and actually give value. I'm not saying pitch slap the hell out of everybody in every email, but putting some kind of an awareness of we have this thing available in each and every email, they have taken the next step towards you anyway. And I think people understand that that's what that is, right? We're all here to run a business. Um, and fundamentally, if people aren't going to be at least clicking or interested in the next thing, you kind of want them to unsubscribe, right? Because a massive list of people who do nothing is kind of irrelevant. That's kind of the drum that I beat on LinkedIn as well, right? We're not going for virality; we're going for like relevance, right? Which I think is really, really important for people to understand. Especially when following these bigger people who are talking about owning a big audience off LinkedIn. Super, super important to own the audience.
Yeah.
It's not cheap to necessarily send emails, right?
It's
You can
true.
make some really good money through it, but
Mhm.
fundamentally, you want people who are relevant and people who are going to stay and people who are interested in just the offer as well, right?
Yeah, and it reminds me, I just built a sequence a week or two ago, and I included what you just said in there of like, hey, here's like some results that we're driving for some clients. It was kind of like a case study email, and it was like, you can keep doing like what you're doing if you're in a good place, and like if so, like feel free to delete these emails, but like we're here to help people who are wanting to take that next jump. And it was just like a simple call out, like it wasn't being like rude or anything. You're just saying like, hey, we're here to help these types of people. If you're like crushing it, like feel free to hop off, like we don't want to bother you. So yeah, just being very clear, and I think people respect that too.
Yeah, totally, totally. I think it's the same in content. I think it's the same in DMs. Being able to like one of the problems that I find people have in the DMs is like the chit chat zone and the pitch slap zone. And I think we're talking about the same thing just with email here, right? Right. You have the total pitch slap, just buy my thing, which you might have more in like let's say the D2C, like the ecom world. It's just like, by the way, I'm selling this thing, and and then you have the chit chat zone, which is like those like 2-page stories that you're going to get in a newsletter, which kind of you're just like, all right, cool, but what really is the point other than me understanding a story about the day that you had or whatever? We need to be able to find some kind of in between where we can actually run a business and have a personality with it at the same time. Yeah, and then that's what people usually work with people. They know, like, and trust, right? So you need to build that and make offers at the same time. Um, Cool, man. So when it comes to like a like a sales sequence, right? Like we've gone through, you've got a nice simple funnel, right? Even if it's just a welcome sequence, right? Free thing, welcome sequence. Maybe in the first email, you might give away something of low ticket, and then you're going to give away a few things. Let's say it's a 3 or 5 day sequence. The last one, or maybe even second to last one, you'll then pitch the higher ticket thing. But like a lot of people who are going to be watching this are in like the B2B space, right? They're also booking meetings straight from content, or they're booking meetings from referrals, or they're booking meetings from DMs, right? How can you, in like a simple way, use email to increase conversion? Let's say somebody books through a DM, right? Can you use email to increase conversion? What does that look like? And then also maybe something that you can do after a call, right? Maybe they don't close that call. What can you do with email to improve that?
Yeah. I love the question. I would say there's three things that come to mind. And I like to think of them as kind of Lego pieces that just like you can fit in to solve different problems. I like to call them like problem specific email sequences because I mean, every business is going to have different problems. And we don't want to just like make content and like make a sequence for the sake of making a sequence because it sounds cool and it looks cool for like our marketing team. But like there are specific problems you can solve. So for example, um, I think one of the most important sequences like a B2B long sales process team can have is a book a call sequence. And so it's like, let's say you get them in the DMs and they fill out an application, but they don't end up booking. And so like you have their contact info, but they didn't follow through and book. Let's just plug in this sequence to help educate them and push them towards a call. So a lot of the CTAs are, hey, like just a reminder, we have this free call. This is what's going to happen on the call. We would love to have you on. Like the reminder email. And then maybe the second one in that sequence could be like a case study of like, hey, these people got these really cool results. If you want the same, let's chat about it, push them to call. Um, so I think like a 3 to 5 email book a call sequence is extremely helpful. The second one is a pre-education sequence. So this is like this is like the next step. So you're in the DMs, they fill out the application and or form whatever, and they book a call. So it's like boom, they book a call, throw them in this sequence. So this pre-education sequence is literally educating them before the call. Like it's pretty simple. And what you can do is you get them hyped, you set expectations, and you're like, hey, I'm like extremely excited to meet with you. If you can personalize it more, like the better. Um, get them hyped, set expectations, and help them like try to give them value beforehand. Like
Nice.
don't make them do more work. A lot of people are like, "Hey, make sure to go check out this thing before our call." It's like, dude, I'm busy. Like I got a little boy screaming at home. We want to like like I got these clients that need taken care of. Like I'm busy. I don't want to just go check something out for the sake of checking it out. And so if you're like, "Hey, I know you're like call it out. I know you're really busy and I know we got this call coming up. I wanted to solve this problem for you." I mean, it's going to be very specific to your category and person,
Sure.
but just adding more value before the call and answering their questions, I think is important. Like, hey, a lot of people ask me, like a lot of people get hung up on the price for this, and they get hung up on like this certain like part of this offer. They're like, so I just
Mhm.
want to answer it for you for the call. And so if we can get people to read that by the time they get to the call, they're like, oh sweet, like you answered a lot of my questions. Let's just get to the good stuff. So
Totally. It's
yeah.
kind of like if you get a bunch of objections on calls, put them in your warm up sequence. Put the solutions to the objections, right, in your warm up sequence, and that will help massively. It's exactly the same thing that I get people to do in the DMs, right? It's like, I don't know whether like, what does a hype email look like? Is there an asset in there, or is it like here's like results that I've got for other people?
Yeah. By hype, you mean like how do you get them excited?
Yeah. So you said like the first email that you'd probably send in like a warm up sequence is like a hype email. What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say like using more engaging language. Like I feel like a lot of people in like the more businessy B2B space, like it's very formal, it's very boring, and it's like, hey, so and so, we have our call scheduled for this day. Before then, like go check or like check out this or like um see you soon and like a sign off, but like make it engaging. Like, hey, like I actually if you do this more manually, I'm going to talk manually and then I'll talk about the sequence version, but like manually just like make it super personalized. Like use language that they would use. Like I can use dude and mate with you. It's like, dude, super excited to chat later today. We're gonna dive into some good stuff. I'm doing some research on my end to make sure this is super effective for you. Like use some good exclamations, use some emojis, like make it fun like you're texting a friend. Um, I think that's extremely important and understanding the language that they use. If it's a bit more formal, like in a sequence where you maybe don't have that um, the abilities to personalize it that much, I would say you can still take a similar approach. Like, hey, so and so, I'm super excited. Like, say it multiple times in the email. Like, really excited to meet with you. This is going to be fun, and um, trying to find ways that you can connect with them like in the so like the more you know the category the better, so like use language that they would use inside of their category, whether that's like acronyms or jargon or things like that that you know that not anyone could say, I think is important. And again,
Yeah.
it's going to be different, it's a little tricky to figure out, but if you can just tailor a bit more to them, I think it can help hype them up and get them excited.
Totally. I think, like, I mean, again, that's, repurposing stuff from calls that you've had or work that you've done with clients previously, actually mentioning it in that way and speaking. We were talking about that congruence, right? Through content, through DMs, through emails. It's about actually being able to speak in the way that one, you speak, and two, they speak, right? Being able to actually create a real relationship there. That's really cool. And then expectations, I can imagine that's literally just like these are the things that we're going to be going through on the call, right? Value and solve I really like. If you can actually solve a problem for somebody before you ever even get them on a call, they are pre-sold, right? That person is already lent in. They've had a result from you in some way, whether that was just helping them write a post or get over a fear or something like that. That's super, super powerful. I have a little document that I send in the DMs before any call, which is what I call a focus doc, right? And it's the focus of my program and how it can help you, right? So it literally just goes through the three different ways in which I help, right? And then what to expect, what it actually looks like, who it's for, who it's not for, things like that, and some kind of results that you can get. And then literally right before, about half an hour to quarter of an hour before the call, I actually just send them a DM and I go, um, hey, check out these happy people, right? And I send them a link to just like a page with case studies on it,
Love it.
right? So it's super powerful, and I think you can do exactly the same thing in the emails as well, and have that as a pre-set out sequence that anybody gets added to as soon as they book a call.
Oh yeah.
Super simple, right? You can automate it as well. You don't need to necessarily do that kind of stuff manual. Um, Super powerful. And then you can also run a sequence off people who didn't close, right? I think something that can be super powerful that I do in the DMs is like, hey, well, let's say they went with a different coach, right? I might ask them, hey, no worries. Really hope that that goes well for you. Would you be down to actually just answer a few questions just so I can improve my own offer? Usually people say yes, and I send them a series of 3 questions of asking about, like, if price wasn't a factor, would you have made a difference, right? What was wrong for it? What made you go with the other person? Or even if they just said no, it's just about how you can then improve as well. What does that kind of look like email wise?
Yeah. Again, I think it's super simple. I like to call it, I'm a simple guy. I like to call it a no close call sequence. Like, hopped on a call, they didn't close, you send them emails. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, same thing, like you said, like ask for feedback, be super transparent. Like, hey, yeah, I'm trying to improve my offers. Love any feedback. And I think like the underlying principle is whenever you ask once, give twice, or like give twice as much. So again, it's like, hey, like would love your feedback, and after you fill it out, like I'll send you more stuff. And so like this is where like you have to think in terms of content and how do you solve problems through your content. Because it's like if I can write something and like build something out like an asset, make it feel like an asset that I can give them, then that can be really helpful. So for example, it's like call finishes, they didn't close, you follow up with like, hey, I would love some feedback. Oh, and by the way, just to make sure you have a really good roadmap moving forward, whether like you come back and we have another call or you go with someone else, I want to make sure you feel confident moving forward. Here's this thing, right? Maybe it's a swipe file of your best stuff. Maybe it's um, like just a big like you're just riffing on like problem solution type of content. Maybe it's like a Loom breakdown of like a big case study that you have that really helps them solve a specific problem. So if you ask once, give twice as much.
Nice. I like that. I like that. So rather than crying and going and having too many whiskeys and with your tail between your legs and sad that you didn't close a client, what you can actually do is potentially turn them into a client down the road by giving them some value and saying, hey, all good, no worries. Um, Here's some value, and here's how we can potentially work together in the future. I think that kind of comes back to, like, I don't know if you have anything automated, but one thing that I do like every 8 weeks ish is like essentially like a launch campaign or like a re-engagement campaign, right? You can do this whether it's every 8 weeks. You can do it whether there's, let's say it's Christmas or Easter or whatever, and you can call it like a call collector campaign or like the Easter call collector campaign or whatever it might be. But you're essentially going out to all the people who didn't close or who you've been having conversations with that you weren't quite right at the time or asked you to reach out later or something like that. And you literally just hit all of them with, by the way, I've got a couple of spots open and I'm running a 20% discount. Or if you don't want to give discounts, then it can be like, oh, we're actually running a thing or a cohort or something that was slightly different to what you were offering before, and see if they're interested in it. So like I think email specifically is a really good one for that because you can hit so many people kind of like instantly, whereas DM wise, you've got to like DM a ton of people, right? Like DMs are great for cold and intent trigger and like managing a few conversations, but trying to like do that to 150 or even 1,000 people at a time is kind of hard. Whereas email, you just write a sequence and then you hit go, right?
Yeah, leverage.
Leverage. Totally. Good answer. um, Excellent, man. That's really cool. So look, like we've kind of gone a little bit on detail here as well. I think at the beginning, I asked, what's like the one sequence that you would do with somebody? That was like a welcome sequence, a 3 to 5 emails that just go out to anybody who signed up to like a free thing. Super, super simple to set up, right? And then beyond that, what's like the next thing that somebody should actually set up? Would you say that that's a newsletter, or would you say that that's some kind of one of these warm up sequences or something like that?
Yeah. Um, Here are my thoughts. I would say the newsletter can be a bit of a rabbit hole because I feel like a lot of people feel like I'm going to be sending stuff to like quality people. I want it to be good, which just like spirals into this perfectionism, which it never gets sent. And so I again, I like to think about it in terms of Lego bricks and where can we put in like these different pieces. And I think it like you got to zoom out and kind of do a little bottleneck analysis of like, okay, what's not working right now? Like, do we need to book more calls? Then let's do it like a book a call sequence. Like, let's build that first, because if you were to start with a newsletter, it's like, okay, well, what's gonna if we need to book more calls, what would help them book more calls? Sending them like more like weekly just free value stuff, or a specific book a call sequence for those high intent people? Probably the second. Like, I think it's solve this problem and then move on to the next. I think like the underlying question before like should I start a newsletter, it's like, well, do you have people that need nurturing? Then yeah, you should probably start the newsletter campaign, or not campaign, but start like get that ball rolling. Same thing with like, hey, we're hopping on a whole bunch of calls. People are booking like crazy, but we're not closing any of them. It's like, okay, let's set up like the no close call follow up sequence. Like, let's get that in place. And I mean, in zooming out in the big picture, like just always have your newsletter cranking. Just get in the habit of writing weekly content. I think that's like the big picture. But if you're to zoom in, it's like, okay, let's just solve specific problems first, because it's going to be different for everyone. I just talked with a client yesterday, and like their problem was like they need a book a call sequence. I'm like, okay, let's do that first, and then we'll move on to the next one, because I know the one after that, it's not a newsletter and it's not the follow-up sequence. It's like a launch sequence, because they're releasing some really cool features with their SaaS product, and it's like that's the next step, and then we'll just keep building from there. So you're essentially just building all these mini marketing assets that will just run. Like, that's the joy and leverage of email. So
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, that's awesome. So essentially, it's get a welcome sequence, which books a call, right? And then from there, what is your biggest bottleneck, and solve it from that, right? It's not necessarily this is the best one, because each business might have a slightly different problem, but somewhere between, let's say, a weekly newsletter or like a pre-call or an after-call sequence, it's essentially like, well, what are you struggling with the most, right? Is it booking calls? Is it closing calls? Right? That's where you can then decide which flow to set up next. Because, like, for me, when I was trying to first come into email, I was just like, what the fuck do I set up? Right? There's like 1,000 different things I can be doing, and I'm just like, which one is the right one to do? But that's
yeah,
super helpful, right? Just
yep,
create a 3 to 5 email welcome, right? If you start booking calls off that, what is the problem? Like, are they not qualified enough? Are they not closing high enough? Right? Okay, cool. Well, then just add a pre-call sequence, right? And then if you're like not closing a bunch of them, or you're actually closing a bunch of them, but there's a few not quite right, then you can add the after call sequence. Um, Also, just to kind of like throw it in there, one of the things that I've actually been doing recently, because I'm not an email guy initially, for a lot of the people who will be watching this, I can imagine they already post on LinkedIn, right? Which might be counterintuitive coming from like as the email guy, you're like newsletter, break it down into lots of posts. But for me, what I've actually been doing just to kind of get used to it is literally just copy and pasting my LinkedIn posts into an email. Sometimes you make it a little bit longer or like explain a little bit more about each point, but that's getting me used to it. And it's actually giving me a bunch of other ideas to create more content,
yep,
right? When you spend more time on the same piece in a different environment, and how it leads into a CTA, you kind of just naturally create more. So that's kind of
absolutely.
just something that, coming from the other side is super, super useful. Happy days, man. That's really cool. Well, thank you very much. Cool. I think like we're about 45 minutes in, and I think we've hit most of the actual sections that we kind of wanted to go through, right? Fundamentally, we're talking about actually taking people off LinkedIn. Actually, how do you take people off LinkedIn? To really start, right? Because we're talking about content to email, right? We went from why email. How do you get them off LinkedIn?
Yep, yeah. And I mean, you know this, you know this part of the game very well, too. And so I think it's I would love to hear your insights as well. I think like like very surface, not surface level, but like very simply, like just give them more opportunities to get off. Like if you have an offer, if you, even if it's like a newsletter offer, like send the link. Like it's pretty simple. That's like that's the simple answer. I would say to go down further, like it kind of, I think it dips into offer creation a little bit. Like you give them a good reason to go off. It's like of course we spend so much time online, and it's like why should I click this button, like why should I go read this stuff, like give them a good reason. And I think that's where really good copywriting comes in, and being able to do it differently than other people. This kind of taps into category design a little bit, but like if everyone in your category is doing the, hey, big problem, big solution. Oh, and if you want access, DM me this and I'll send it to you. Like, cool, like we know it works, but like, can you innovate a little bit on that? Or like, can you do something different? Because I like it. You've kind of been going more short form in a lot of your content, which I like. Because it's like, hey, like this cool thing happened, and here's a link if you want it. Like, I dig that stuff because like I'm just go, go, go. Oh, sweet. Here's the link. Let's go. Um, and so I want to do more of that versus like the really long stuff and then bury the link at the bottom. Like just put the link at the top. Like, hey, if you want it, here's the link. I'm going to explain why. Like mix it up, do something different. And like, I think have fun with it too. I know it's very
Totally.
subjective to say, but like you can mix it up. You don't have to do what everyone else does. So
Totally. Totally. I think like, well, I think you just nailed it in the beginning. Just share the fucking link with people, right? um, right. Just give people the link. Give them every option, right? So use your featured section, right? Use the custom button if you have Pro, right? Everything that you can do, just put the link for someone to take the next step. That's actually basically, maybe that's what I should call my business, next step leads, because that's pretty much all I ever talk about when I'm talking to clients, right? It's like, well, make the next step for the client, for the lead, really, really easy, right? When you're reaching out to somebody, make the response really easy. Once they've responded to you, make it really easy to keep talking and potentially take that next step towards telling you some information. If they're hitting your profile, they need to understand like who you do, what you help them, who you help, what you help them achieve, and like how they can get that help, right? Everything is just about removing the friction to them taking that next step, which makes it super easy. I think Daniel Priestley called it the everyday CTA, right? Which is literally just putting a CTA in every single post that you have. And then if none of you follow Matt Barker, you should go check him out. Really good guy with content. And he did a test of essentially every single post for 30 days had under 100 words in it and at least one link. I tested it and I've been getting something like one click for every 110 unique visitors and about 150 impressions, which is pretty high, right? Like a lot of my posts are getting somewhere between 10 to 60 clicks on them, which is like quite high. And if you go over 100 words, that drops by quite a lot, which is really surprising. So I think, yeah, I think you nailed it at the beginning, right? Just put a link everywhere that you can, but don't, you know, excuse my French, be a dick about it, right? It's just like if you would like to take the next step, it's here, right? It doesn't want to necessarily sound like a pitch. Cool,
yeah,
man. Look, what
I
I'm going
think,
to do now is I'm going to kind of jump into like a bunch of people put, sorry,
like, can I share one last thing on that?
100%.
Okay, sorry to cut you off. There was one example that like I had major respect for from a dude. His name's Jay. I forgot his last name, but he like called it out and he explicitly did not ask for the email, which I thought was kind of a pro move. You can't do it all the time, but he was like, "Hey, I literally don't want your email. I want you to win. Here's the link, and you have full access to it. I don't want your email." Now, some people may think it's counterintuitive, but I was like, "Oh, like this dude actually wants to help me, and he's trying to speed up this process for me." So it wasn't like take me to a landing page, fill it out, and then move on to the next thing. And so like a little bit counterintuitive because it kind of goes against everything we talked about. But I think like it's something to test of like if it's just something free and like you want to help people and like it's not this full on lead magnet. You're like, hey, I found this cool thing, go check it out. Or like I built this like a small thing. Like I have a little bit more respect for that dude because he's like, I'm not here to just snag your email. Like I want you to genuinely win. And then the very next thing he sent out, I was like, I'm giving this dude my email. Like, I want more of his stuff. So it's interesting. But
Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting because, like, will it attract more people who just want the free thing and don't want to give over the email? Like, you always want to filter for it, but then again, maybe it'll actually boost the people who would give the email the next time because it's in free value, or even you have a next step in the thing he gave you, which
exactly.
then does require an email, right?
Yep.
Or something like that. Yeah, that's super interesting. I think like a lot of people in content talk about like a time to grow and a time to harvest or something like that, right? And it's about doing like growth content and then harvesting content. Personally, I like to have an element of harvest in every single one, which is asking for their email to some extent. I'm very much in the lead gen B2B space, but I think a
Exactly.
lot of people who are like, let's say, quote, creator, right? And they might have a few low ticket options and they actually just want to like get people in there. That can be really beneficial, right? To actually get like that larger kind of audience there. Cool,
Absolutely.
man. I'm
Great.
going to jump in. We have a bunch of questions from people who filled out on the registration form. I'll just go through them from most recent um, and read them out. I think some of them are around the DMs, some of them are around like email. So I'll go through them now. So, like, this person asked, what can I automate and how do I customize my content effectively? I think that's probably one of yours, right? So it's about content and then automation of something off the back end.
Yeah. So the question was, how do I customize my content?
Yeah, how do I customize my content effectively? My brain instantly goes to like, don't just use AI.
Yeah.
Um, but like, what can I automate and how can I customize my content effectively? It's like, well, I think Jackson answered it in the beginning with just like, first up, just automate a welcome sequence. And then when it comes to customizing your content, just be you in the posts and add a link.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like two other ways, like two other lenses to look at it is like use language that you would actually use. So I really like your emails that you send and like your content in general because it's lots of like cheers and like you say the word cheers and you say like mate and like I know like when a post is from you just because like the language and how you speak. And like for example for me, I always use words like I like to use the word dude a lot. Like there's small like little language hacks like that I think are important to include. So that's like one small separator to customize it. I think another one is like the branding. The newsletter strategy breakdowns does a really good job with this. He's created like essentially like little mini gifs in his newsletter, or like little animated pictures, and it's like an arrow leading down to the next section. Like a really good example of like that's how he designed it on or just customizing it through design. I think is cool. Like include your colors. Like I changed all of my links to red links because like red is one of my branded colors. And so I mean there's small things. It's not like you change the link color and more people book a call, but it's just how people associate with you and the bigger branding picture. So
Yeah, nice. So essentially, just be more human to customize, right? I think a lot of the time people say they want to customize something, and maybe in their head they're going, "How can I customize it so it's most attractive to clients?" And if you run your business on trying to customize it so that it's most attractive for other people, you're going to hate running your business,
yeah,
right? You like want to filter for people who don't like your vibe. Whether you're an agency, I think that used to be more of like a coach thing, like a one-to-one, like what I do, right? Whereas agencies were like, I don't need to do that. I don't want to do what's good for my clients. But then you just end up with horrendous clients, right? Like you, even as an agency, a lot of them now you're founder led, or at least you're like person led, personality led. And if you build your brand on a personality that you don't like being or that is for someone else, it's gonna suck. So when it comes to customizing content, my advice would be the same as Jackson's. Use your slang. Say stuff how you would say it. And then when it comes to automation, you can automate sequences. But when something specific happens that's cool and you want to share it, just share it. Like there's nothing to stop you hitting broadcast and sending an email out to everybody when a client sends you that they just got a result and you just screenshot it and you're just like, I'm fucking pumped about this. I just want to share it and tell you guys. Right? That's sick. Right? I think that's really important. And when it comes to automation, please don't automate the LinkedIn DMs. Like, just please don't. I think for some people there can be some argument of automating like in mails, maybe if you're like super B2B and only reaching out to C-suite. But fundamentally, again, you're building a relationship with somebody,
Yeah.
and please just try not to automate the DMs, because it will come back to bite you in the ass. And really, you need insane volume to be able to actually make that work as well. Cool. The next one was how to start a natural no pitch conversation in the DMs. So I'll just share a framework, right? I use the ACA framework, right? That's acknowledge, it's compliment, it's ask, right? And essentially, you just want to acknowledge the person, right? Hey, Jackson, appreciate you connecting, man. Or like, hey, Jackson, you sent me a connection request, right? Just on your profile now, right? And to be clear, send this as multiple DMs, right? So acknowledge, hey, Jackson, appreciate you sending me a connection request. I'm just on your profile now, right? Compliment or observation, don't be sickening, right? So don't be like, oh my God, I love this and I love that. And this is so impressive. And I noticed this thing and this thing and stuff. Just be like, business looks interesting, dude. Right? Again, speak how you would normally speak. Don't try and write a corporate message. So compliment is business looks interesting, and then ask is you ask some kind of a question that leads in the direction of business. Again, it's coming back to that like pitch slap zone and the chit chat zone. And I always picture it like you're walking along a tightrope. And I don't know if any of you have done circus skills. I did circus skills at school, so this is the image that I have. But on one side, you're pitch slapping people and you fall off, and that sucks. And on one side, you're chit chatting and you end up in a 6-month conversation, and that sucks as well because it wastes both of your time. What you need to do when you start a conversation and when you step onto a tightrope is you need to point. You need to do what's called pointing, where you look at the spot on the other end, and you need to start with the end in mind. So asking that question is asking a question about business so that you can continue to have a conversation about business. So let's say Jackson does email. I might be like, business looks interesting, dude. Is that just you, or are you running a team, right? Or it might be looks like you're pretty recent to LinkedIn. How's it going for you so far, right? Are you booking many calls? Because I help people book calls. So looks like you're pretty fresh here, man. Are you working with many clients yet? Right? It's something that's natural. It's something that's easy, and it's not about pitching somebody, but it's also not about being like, oh, how's business going, and then ending up in a random conversation about nothing else. So start with the end in mind would be my main advice with starting a natural conversation, and also have the image in your head that you're sat down with this person at coffee, like a friend, or you're texting your friend about meeting for a coffee, right? And again, that doesn't mean fall into chit chat. It just means write how you would text someone. Don't write how you think a business relationship should be built.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always fall into the chit chat phase because I'm like, oh, I want to be like warm and casual and friendly. But I actually went through your lead magnet and like, and I think I told you too. I was like, dude, your stuff works. Because I went through, I tweaked it all. I was like, okay, let's like, I love the pointing analogy of like, hey, this is where we're going. This is how I can help you. But I loved how you flushed it out. I think you like did a loom on it, and it was like, there's different levels. Like you can like crank these levers even more. Like you can be more formal, like, or you can lead with your offers, or like you can go the text or the audio message or the video. If you just like, how much do you want to crank this? And I really liked how like you really flushed that out, and it works. So, amen to what you're doing. So,
yeah, appreciate it, man. I think honestly, like we were talking about leverage at the beginning, right? And for me, DMs are the closest thing to money, right? You can close a client from the DMs this week, right? If you just start connecting and sending DMs to people, because it's the closest thing to money. But I think content, removal of audience to an owned audience, and emails add leverage by increasing intent triggers. So not just likes, comments, profile views, but also email opens, link clicks. You end up getting them to spend more time the 7-Eleven for. It adds that leverage over time, which is just like the biggest lever that you can pull. It just takes time to do it, right? So I think the combination of these two things, DMs and content and email funnels, is like the most powerful thing. And like one of the things I say to people a lot is like, you don't need each thing to be perfect, right? People go, oh, you only do this thing or you only do that thing. And it's like, nah, you can be average at all three. right? And
Yeah.
you'll probably do way better than the person who's really good at that one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I tell people all the time, it's like, they're like, well, how do you like build these, like this funnel? And like, we need this. Is like, dude, you aren't sending any emails. Like, just start
Yeah,
sending something, or like at least start collecting emails. I think is like
yeah,
the first step. Um, so like have like make sure you're tracking them good, even if you're not sending anything, just collect them. Because I feel like a lot of people just need to go from like 0 to 1, and then we can start talking in like more advanced funnels and strategies. It's like if you haven't started, like just start sending the DMs, start
yeah,
sending the email.
yeah,
So
100%. Just start. Yeah, for sure. And like to collect emails, Beehive is free to begin with, I believe. You can't do like automated sequences off it, but you'd have to pay to do that. But you can have a free account and up to like 1,000 emails or something, right? Just start collecting them, and then when you want to start sending them, pay for it and start sending them, right? Or even just a tally form, right? A tally form that asks their email name and something, and then redirects them to a free thing. Great. Ask their LinkedIn URL as well, and then DM them when they download it, right? Super simple. Um, cool. How to hit a better response rate? I think that can kind of go both. Do you want to do email first?
yeah, I would say so. I'm thinking response rate and like I'll kind of go through like 3 different metrics. So like I'm thinking response and like how are they engaging with your emails. I think it's just taking like what problem are you dealing with and getting more specific. Like if they aren't opening emails, like write better subject lines. Like let's be a little bit more curious. Like have more, um, like cut that like their attention essentially, um, to get them to open the email, and then with like the clicks, it's like we'll have a really good CTA. Like make it engaging, make them want to click on it, so we can get more people to click on the CTA. And then I'm also thinking response in like terms of replies to email. Like if you don't ask people questions and if you don't tell them, hey, reply to this email, I would love to hear. Like if you ask someone about their life story, a lot of people are actually pretty open to it. Like they will tell you like their backstory. People love talking about themselves. And so you can learn a lot if you're just like in that first welcome flow. If you're like, hey, would love to hear more like where you're at in your journey. Like give me the lowdown, tell me the story. I think just asking people questions, I think can really help with um, responses, replies, wherever you're however you're trying to get more engagement, just ask really good questions, effective questions.
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, how do you get people to respond to you? Is ask them questions, right? Give them a reason to respond. Yeah. Um, I think that's a good answer. I think when it comes to the DMs, how to get a better response rate is a lot of people will. I guess obviously, I'm assuming it's first. This question is like how to get to the first email, how to get a response, right? Or the first message, how to get a good response. Um, it's about navigating that line of again the chit chat and the pitch slap. If you pitch slap people, you will get less response, but the people who do respond at least positively will probably be the 3% who are ready to buy, right? Whereas if you just want a higher response rate to potentially convert more people down the line, then be human. It goes back to exactly what we were saying before about use your own slang. Ask people about them rather than tell people about yourself as well, right? That's, I think, probably one of the most important things. When you ask a question, right, people want to talk about themselves. So
Hmm.
ask them about themselves in a container or in a frame that goes in the direction that you want to speak about. That's what like is the that's probably the hardest part to get, right? It's like asking the question in a way that sounds like you're asking about them. Well, you are asking about them, but so that you can start that conversation in the direction that you want to go, right? So, like if you do team management or something, team management software, or how to run a team better or something like that, then you can ask that question. Just like, oh, is that just you, or do you run a team, right? Something like that, right? Rather than being like, by the way, I help people run teams better, right? Do you want to call? It's like, do you run a team? And just asking people about themselves. I don't know if you've read Chris Voss. Um, I Never Split the Difference, his book. He was like a hostage negotiator for the FBI. But he talks about this kind of frame, which is childlike curiosity, right? And I say to use that in the DMs. Be a curious child about the other person. Just asking questions like, oh, that's super interesting, right? And use things like, interesting. Oh, oh, wow, I didn't think about it that way. Oh, man, that's cool, right? Like, say stuff like that in the DMs because that is how you actually have a conversation. Again, you're at coffee with somebody, right? You're curious about them. Cool. This one is a little bit, I think it's particularly DMs, but like we do outreach. I use the term loosely, identify an ICP, send a connection request, message follow up. What really moves the needle, right? Engaging with their posts, commenting, likes, building an audience. The way they currently do it right now feels too cold with the analogy of like, will you marry me on the first date? We use a connection request as a signal, but I don't think that works. Right, cool. So essentially you do LinkedIn cold outreach, right? I would also call a connection request a signal, but you can't actually DM them unless they accept. So it's kind of cold. It's as cold as it gets on LinkedIn without using emails. And you're essentially struggling with a pitch slap. What is what it sounds like. Will you marry on the first? What really makes the difference is basically what we've just said, right? Is like actually starting a conversation with that person using childlike curiosity and speaking to that person like another human rather than like a business transaction is what really makes that difference. And like, just to be clear on this, like you can offer a call or start talking business within 2 or 3 messages. It doesn't mean you have to have this long conversation with somebody, right? I've offered calls within the first 3 messages to people because you asked the first question correctly. You started with the end in mind correctly. And then this person has asked, like, what makes the biggest difference outside of doing that pitch, essentially, which is it engaging with their posts, commenting, likes, or building an audience? My response to that would be send them something like a case study or a free thing is really, really powerful. Even if you've just pitched, going back and reaching out to everybody who you pitched and has never responded and going, by the way, I just built this thing for somebody similar to you and I thought it might help. Here it is. And don't ask for an email, just give it to them. Right? That is super, super powerful because you're kind of restarting that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. In a way that's giving. So give twice, ask once. That's what you said, right? That's really powerful. But then when it comes to actually getting more response, is using things like intent triggers, and that's where kind of Jackson comes in with the content, email, reaching out to people who've clicked a lot of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. The line that I always like to use is like always happy to help.
Right.
Like, hey, like I want to be a resource for you. And I even preface that on calls sometimes. I'm like, I'm not trying to like persuade you or use some like sales tactics to try to make you give me money. Like, I want this to be a resource. So whether we end up working together or not, like you have everything you need to make a confident decision moving forward. If we work together, sweet, let's do it. If not, you're prepped and ready to go.
Yeah, totally. I think the most important thing there is just that we qualify for most people who get on a call do want to work with you. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I completely agree. Like there can't, especially because I'm a coach. Like if I try and like weasel somebody into working with me and paying me a bunch of money, then I have to work with that person one to one. Like I don't know if I can do that. That sounds awful. So it's really about again Daniel Priestley. He calls it with or without you energy.
Yeah, I like
Right?
that.
Like, are you going to come on this training with us? It's cool, but like you're welcome, but like no sweat if not.
Yeah, we're moving forward either way.
Totally, yeah, yeah. The door is open for a while, and we'd love to have you. But if you don't want to, then it's fine. Yeah, totally. Cool. Uh, People have asked a lot of the same question. Do people actually read email newsletters, Jackson?
Yes, they do. Yep. Um, at the same time, a lot of people do them wrong. Like, and their emails don't perform very well. I think there's lots of copying and, oh, this person did that, so I'm going to go do the same thing. And this is where like my category design brain kicks in of like, if you really want people to own it or like to read your newsletter, like own your category, build your own, like start playing your own game and creating your own game. My I'm calling my newsletter, like, this is almost more for me, but like the newsletter games. Like I want to show you how to play like this email game. um,
Nice.
I can set the rules to it. I can send stuff when I want to send it, and like I have more control. And like, well, you want to figure out how to like level up, or you want to figure out how to defeat like the boss of people not opening your emails. Like, let me help you walk through this. And so, trying to frame things in that way. Yeah, like when your content's, I'll add this too because I was thinking about this recently. Is one thing that I'm trying to lean into to get to have more engaging content, especially with like newsletters, is I want to write more like funny content, like humorous, like engaging content. Not saying I have to like become like a comedian with everything that I write, but it's like throwing some jokes, throwing some memes, like be a bit more casual with it because at the end of the day, like no one cares. They just want their problem solved. Um, so just having a lot more fun with it is a big goal of mine, just to help people be a bit more engaged. So yes,
Totally.
they do.
They do read emails, yes. Like people aren't sending newsletters for fun, right? Well, by the sounds of it, they should be, right? But
Have fun
like,
while you're doing it, but still make sure
yeah,
it's congruent with your goal. Yeah.
totally,
I,
totally. But like, we wouldn't be just sending them for fun, right? The point is that it's still a business action to take. Um, and I think the thing is like with all content and with all outreach, it kind of sucks at first because you're trying to figure out how to do it, and it's difficult and it's a new thing, and actually the tech around it isn't that simple, and setting it all up and stuff like that. And I think just focusing on the most simple input that you can do. So, like for me, that was copy and pasting my LinkedIn posts I was already writing. It's straight into email, right? And for a while, I literally just copy and pasted them and just put a different PS, right? Rather than the lead magnet, it was to work with me, right? That's the simple input that I can do because I'm already doing that other action. Um, but yeah, totally. People definitely read emails.
yeah.
What's
Well,
the best? Sorry.
yeah. Go ahead.
The next question was, what's the best weekly rhythm for newsletters, right? Would you say weekly or 3 times a week?
Um, the classic answer of it depends. um, I mean, every single reader and audience is going to be different. Um, and I think it's something to test. So, like, test number one is make sure, like, you're starting. Like, don't solve a problem you don't have yet. So, like, if you're not sending any, start sending them. That's the first bottleneck. And then second, um, if you have started and you're like, okay, I want to improve this. I want to go from level 2 to level 3. I would say, like, ask your readers. Say, do you want more of this because I can send more, or is a weekly fine? Like, do you like getting this on a weekly cadence on these days? And like, people let you know. Like, just ask them. I think that's one way you can figure it out. I think number two is just understanding how fast your category moves. Like I mentioned with like the Fit Insider newsletter, they're sending like so much content like daily, and they can do that because it moves so fast, and there's so many different aspects of that category that they're connected with that like it feels normal, even though on the surface it's like, oh my gosh, they're sending way too much. It's like, no, they aren't. They have that much to talk about, so they can. And I'm sure that's very segmented of who they're sending it to. And then on the other hand, it's like if you're in a slower moving category, then you may not have to send as much. I think bare minimum, like just send a weekly newsletter, like minimum, like just go bi-weekly and like just get something out. Not don't send just for the sake of sending, but like, of course, make sure it's congruent and high value. But yeah, like you really have to ask people. You have to understand the bigger picture of like, okay, is this? Can I keep the quality with the quantity that I want to send?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that's important. I think that again kind of goes back to the quality being you, being natural,
Yeah,
right? Because if the quality is separate from who you normally are, it's really hard to one do one amount, like the initial amount, but then also to scale that. You're just like, how can I do even more of this thing that feels like a chore, right? Um, cool. Best system for consistency in outreach. Honestly, use Kondo, Kondo. That is an insane tool, right? You can cut your time in half by like
cool.
10x. That makes no sense, but do you know what I mean? Like, you can spend a lot less time in the DMs by using something like Kondo, right? Kondo, you can tag, you can use reminders, all that kind of stuff. It's not an automation tool. It is a tool that allows you to manage the DMs in a separate thing, and you can set reminders and all that kind of good stuff. Super super handy. I can stick a link in the comments for that tool, or you can just Google it. It's great. And then like when it comes to actual like a system for it, just send, if you're on Pro, like a sales nav, just send 40 connections every day and start 10 new conversations every day. Do not try and start 100 conversations on a Friday, burn yourself out, and then not do anything for 3 weeks, right? The best system is small amount consistently, right? 10 conversations a day, even five, if 10 is too much. You will start to enjoy it when you start to see results, and you will naturally do more. So Kondo, send 40 connections. I think it's 20 connections if you're on free, and then just start as many conversations as feels comfortable per day. 10 is a great starting point, right? Um, I think we've answered pretty much all of the others here. I'm just checking. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, cool. We've answered pretty much all of those. There's a couple that came in the comments, so let's just hit those. I think there's literally only two that came in through the comments so far. Okay, this might be an interesting one. It's kind of about like finding clients. How much? So, how about finding new clients? Where to find corporate clients that are hidden behind org charts? I'm not entirely sure what an org chart is. Is that something that you do you understand that question?
Yeah, I think if I understand right, it's like who's like the decision maker and who's like the gatekeeper of like if the CEO is crowded and they have like an assistant or like a receptionist who you got to go through first, like do you try to target the CEO first, or do you go after like the VP of marketing first? Um, if I understand right, I think that's what they're asking, and I think it's something to test. You know, some founders are just so slammed. It's like it's going to be a different conversation with them. I've found a lot of benefit trying to um, start conversations with like the VPs of growth and marketing. And again, this is very tailored towards like what I do, my services, and who I'm trying to help. And because I found it a bit easier because those guys understand the newsletter game and the benefits of a newsletter. So when I'm able to say, hey, here's what I'm working on, I think there's an opportunity for you guys. Of course, in the DMs, I think that conversation can scale a lot faster versus a conversation with a founder who like same company, but they're like, dude, I'm so stressed right now. Like I'm trying to put out 15 different fires and I can't talk about this right now. And so still like connect with them. It's just going to be a different type of conversation, I think. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I see it of like, okay, can we connect with other people in this, in different roles, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I'm assuming this question was phrased around like cold email, right? So like you scrape a bunch of data and then you send out a bunch of cold emails. Um, is that something that you do as well, or yours is more content into email funnels from signups?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the principles are the same of like the writing of like, yeah, make it engaging, have a clear CTA, set expectations, get them excited. I think those principles are the same. I like to do more on the warm content side of, you know, slowly nurturing people. whether it's to book a call, to like take the next step. I think it gets a little bit harder when you start tapping into cold lists. It's just a different approach. I haven't done like a ton on my side. I'm familiar with it, but I mean, I can't speak to it like an expert. So on the cold side.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. All right, cool. Well, the next question was also about specifically cold. He says, you guys seem to be talking about people who signed up. I'm working with a list of 2,500 lawyers, but they're cold, right? So he's obviously got a 2.5K list of lawyers. Like, honestly, the best answer I would have, I mean, I know that he's talking about like an email list, right? If you're thinking of reaching out cold with an email, um, it's a lot harder to start a conversation, right? Because it's email, right? So it's probably going to be more direct response. If you have other systems, Jackson, then hit with them afterwards. But direct response is how I would go with it. I would say don't over explain. Simply present the outcome that you can provide and ask if that would be helpful. And maybe share one line which shares like the results you've got for other people. So like let's say you're going to get lawyers more clients. I don't know, whatever the offer is that they have, right? It's basically just going to be reaching out and it's going to be like, hey name, would getting more clients be helpful for you? We've been working with lawyers and here's a couple of results that we got recently. Boom, boom, boom. Is that something that could be helpful, right? Reply yes, and I'll send over a bit more info on how that might work,
Exactly.
right? And that gets them to reply, and then you send it over, right? Rather than just slamming like the Calendly link straight in there. I think that again, that asks a question about them and their business rather than telling them about yours. So I would use that same frame like I was talking about earlier, which is essentially just curiosity, right? So rather than reaching them and going, we help lawyers get 10 to 30 leads every single week, and we do it by this feature, and we're really great. Here's a Calendly link, right? You literally just go, would an extra 10 to 15 applications be useful for you guys? Here's some results we got recently. Reply
Yeah.
yes, and I'll send over how it works.
And it reminds me of what I think I heard this from Nicholas Cole this last week. And he was saying when he was doing cold email for his agency a few years back, he was like, the email line that crushed for him was like, can you hop on a call? Question mark. And like it caught everyone off guard because they're like, wait, everyone's like, oh, we can help you at your company improve your marketing. Like subject line was literally, can you hop on a call? And so it got them to open the email. And then same thing, like you said, very simple, like 3 sentences, maybe 5 sentences of like, hey, super small ask. Here's the next step. And so I think like do it like you're texting a friend because it's going to it's going to resonate more with them because they're like, oh, like that actually caught my attention because there's 500 other emails that I haven't read yet. So
Yeah, exactly. Like you want like most longer. You know when you get those ones on LinkedIn and it's about 6 paragraphs of their features and benefits, and you read the first line and then delete it, right? That's what you're going to get if you cold email somebody a massive chunk of paragraphs because they get 150 of them a day and they're not interested. Whereas if it's literally just one line or 3 lines, which asks them if the outcome could be useful for them, you know, it's just going to be an easy yes or no. Um, I think asking it's like rather than just shoving stuff in people's face,
yeah. Oh yeah. Ask the right
right?
question.
I didn't want to say asking for permission, but asking if something could be useful or if more information on a topic could be useful, right? Is just a really good way to go. And whether you share the Calendly or just get them to have a response first, is like again just test it, right? Um, yeah, man. Hopefully that answers their question. I know it's a little bit out of the scope of kind of what we were talking about with the content and email funnels, and then obviously leverage with DMs, but hopefully that answers. Cool. That is all the questions that we've essentially been through. Man, this has been super, super helpful. I think like I'm fairly new to email specifically. I've been on LinkedIn for a couple of years. But following your stuff and learning more about email has really lit a fire under my outreach. And that's kind of why I wanted to have this conversation with you today, because like I think just so many people don't like, each thing feels like such a big thing,
Yeah.
right? And ideally the goal is to simplify and say, well, look, you can do a small amount of each thing, or just start doing a little bit of that thing, right? If you're already posting 3 times a week and you're sending 5 DMs a day, and you're working with a few clients, just start letting people sign up to an email and copy and pasting your posts into emails, right? Or building a 3 email welcome sequence, right? And then just looking at who viewed the profile, who viewed the emails, and send DMs to those people, right? It can be that simple. And I think the amount of leverage that it adds is massive. I think I booked a call with somebody today in about 3 DMs because I actually connected. I mean, might be a little bit of a caveat, but connected like the MCP, right, to the Claude. And I was like, who's interested in my shit inside Claude, right? Who's been clicking on my emails loads? And it was like, these people. And I was like, cool. I just DM'd one of them, having never even connected with them. But they've signed up to my thing and they've been reading my emails. And they've opened 6 of them in the past 14 days or something like that. And they've clicked on all the links in them. So I just emailed them and I was like, yo, man, you've been clicking on a bunch of my emails. Yeah, I'm weird and look at that kind of stuff. How's it going? Right? Like, are you booking calls on here? Um, and he was just like, oh, yeah, full transparency. I'm actually interested in what you do. And we booked a call in like 3 messages. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean by leverage,
Yeah.
right? Somebody who you never knew was even in your audience. And it kind of isn't because they weren't even connected, but they have clicked on a post and they have opened emails, right? And these are emails that all I'm doing is copy and pasting from my posts. And then I just saw that he clicked on a bunch and DM'd him. So that is leverage. Like, you're starting that conversation this close to the goal that is booking a meeting. Whereas if you're just DMing people who you send connections to, you're starting it over here. A like is here, a comment might be here, a profile view might be here. But if somebody's opened 10 of your in emails, you're over here, right? And that person is really close to you and interested in what you do. So I think that's really, really powerful. Even if you want to just do the welcome sequence, you know, super, super strong. Man, I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else that you have closing remarks wise?
Um, I think just last thought is you got to find a way to like hold yourself accountable, like you said, of like just start and like how do you like lock in, like how do you actually lock in? And I think one way is to not build in public, but like tell people publicly that you were going to start it, but you don't have to start now, if that makes sense. It's counterintuitive, but what I mean is like start the wait list now. Say,
Totally.
hey, I want to start this thing, make a post about it. I'm going to start this newsletter, or I want to start this offer. The wait list is now open. So start collecting those emails. Like, it's the easiest step you can take to actually start, even though you haven't started it yet. And then like set a deadline for yourself. Like, I want to send the first newsletter by like the end of this week, and then make sure it happens. Go get to work and go get it done. I think that's the simple like 1A place to start, and then you can move forward from there. Because it's hard to stop a moving train. That's what I always tell myself. Once you get the ball rolling, like just keep it rolling, and good things happen. So
Yeah, man, for sure. Epic. Cool. And if people want to work with you, how do they go do that?
yeah, shoot me a DM. uh, I would say it's probably simplest for everyone. Um, and yeah, I'll probably share a bunch of. I would say hop on the newsletter too. Um,
Where can they find
I
that in
can
your
send a
featured
link to that.
section?
Yeah, I'll put that in there. People can hop on there, and I'll be sending like some cool resources afterwards, um, especially along the lines of like category design. So how do you do everything we just talked about, but like think about it differently in like kind of more innovative ways? So yeah, I'll be sending some cool stuff there. So shoot me a DM or hop on the newsletter.
Nice. And they can find the newsletter in your featured section, right? Yeah, happy days. Cool, guys. And then same for me, right? Feature section, you got all the bits and stuff, and DM me if you want to learn how to do DMs. What I'll also do is I'll just put the easiest way to start DMs in the comments here now. Jackson, if you've got anything, shoot it over to me and I'll stick it in the comments as well that people can go download, maybe like a good free start for them. Even just the link to your newsletter or anything like that, you can DM me and I'll stick it in the comments as well.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All right. I'll appreciate everybody coming. Great to have you, and I hope that this was helpful for you. Jackson's a legend, so go DM him if you want any help with email, anything like that. And guys, peace, and I'm sure I'll see you all soon.
Let's go. Appreciate you.